Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1023A, and today's date is July 15th, 2016, and the title of the episode is Global Corporate Defaults on Pace to Pass 2009 Record. We are seeing an economic implosion. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, as we move into the summer here, into the middle of the summer, we're realizing that the economy is accelerating to the downside. Now, the corporate media, the U.S. government, the Fed, they're continually pushing the idea that everything looks good. I mean, the corporate media today saying retail sales are up. They tell us housing is up. Everything looks good. But you have to remember, when the corporate media comes out and says retail is surging once again, well, if you're surging from a period of where sales have been down, maybe in the negative range, and they surge up to 0, that's not a surge. When you step back and you look at the year-on-year trend of retail sales, you see the trend is down. A little bounce gives you absolutely nothing. We've seen many different dead cat bounces occur, but the trend is continually declining. But they like to use these small little pops as everything is back on track. And then, of course, what happens is they revise numbers, they manipulate it, they massage it, and they do whatever they possibly can. But when you really look at the numbers, they're going nowhere. And people are starting to realize this, because we're seeing the Umich consumer expectations. It tumbled to its lowest since September of 2014. So we have the hope of the people, and that hope is dying. And then we have stocks, which is continually rising. We have a problem here. It makes no sense. Now, I just mentioned retail sales, and the corporate media is making a huge, big deal about U.S. retail sales. They just surged. It's incredible. It's back on track. They're up by 0.6% after the slowdown in May. But when we look at this, what do we see? Well, their expectations were a 0.1% rise. It went up by 0.6%. But this was due to downward revisions from 0.5% to just 0.2% year over year. Headline retail sales rose 2.7%, but continues to hover around recessionary area. So we step back. We take a look at where we are. I'll give you an example. Back in 2004, retail sales were at 9. And of course, everyone's out there, wow, look at the retail, it's incredible, it's doing well, and it was at that time. It dropped down in 2005 going into 2006 to 5, shot back up to about 8, and then it continued its downward trend to 5, to 3, to 2.5. It shot up one more time to 5, and then it crashed in 2007 going into 2008. Back in 2010, retail sales hit around 7 or 8. In 2012, it came down to 5. In 2015, it came down to 3. It shot back up a little bit to about 3.2, and then it came down to 2.9, dropped to 2.7. And when you look at this, you see we're in a downward trend. Actually, when you go back to 2004 to 2008, when you go back to 1998 to 2000, it looks very, very similar. All on a downward trend, all heading into a huge recession/depression. And we know that business inventories to sales ratio, well, that is above 1.4. We see U.S. industrial production. It has declined for the 10th straight month. Now, what we're seeing right now is that month on month, it popped up a little bit, but year on year, it remains at negative 0.7%. And again, when we look at the year on year and what it's really doing, it's declining. It's not improving whatsoever. It's getting worse and worse as time goes on. The Empire Fed, manufacturing, well, it declined 5 points from 6 to 0.55, below the 5 expected print. So it looks like it printed, at 0, then above 0, then below 0, above 0, back to 0. And this has been happening over this past 6 months. And we know the U.S. government central bankers, they have the ability to manipulate, and each time they try to boost certain data points. But eventually what happens is it continually crashes, and the trend again is down. None of this is improving right now. Now, we have this indicator of global corporate defaults, and this is very interesting. As we know, the S&P is rising to all-time new highs. We know that's completely manipulated, and the U.S. government central bankers, they want us looking at that, saying this is the indicator that tells you how the economy is doing. Well, no, that tells you absolutely nothing. Everything that we've been looking at tells you what's really going on here. So what we're looking at here is that the global corporate defaults, well, they just hit 100. What does that mean? Well, when did this happen once before? Well, this happened back in 2009. And right now, we're on pace to surpass the corporate defaults in 2009. And we're only halfway through 2016. This right here shows us that we are in big trouble. Now, let's put it all together. Manufacturing is declining. Retail is a downward trend. Business inventories above the 1.40. GDP declining. Housing is rolling over. What are we seeing here? A complete implosion of the economy right now. Now let's add on one more thing here, because the National Association of Credit Managers came out, Chris Kuehl, and he did not have good news. What he is saying is that the credit cycle is back at its weakest since 2009. It has crashed to 7-year lows. So what we're looking at here is every single economic indicator continually tells us that the economy is in a downward trend. Not improving like the corporate media wants to make us believe, not like the Fed, the U.S. government, where they're trying to convince us that everything is fine. The actual data in all these different sectors, they're showing us, they're reporting to us that things are actually a lot worse than they're letting us believe. And we know the U.S. government central bankers, they lie to us all the time. And they'll lie to us until the very end. Actually, Obama lied to the people in the UK. Remember when he was out there right before the Brexit? And Obama said, listen, If you vote and you vote to leave the EU, you're going to be in the back of the queue for any type of trade deal with the U.S. So I'm begging you, stay in the EU. That's really what he said. Well, we come to learn that the UK is not in the back of the queue. Actually, they're in the front of the queue. Obama, he has begun preliminary discussions with senior UK officials about how they might pursue a trade agreement between the two countries following the exit from the EU. So, is he lying now, or did he lie then? They always lie. He said whatever he had to say to convince the people to stay with the EU, and then he turns around and says, okay, let's get this TTIP passed. He doesn't care about anything. He doesn't care about telling the truth. The Fed doesn't care about telling the truth. The Fed doesn't care about telling you if the economy is good or bad or anything like that. They care about themselves. They don't care about country. They don't care about people. They have no allegiance whatsoever. And what we're seeing right now from all this data is that this economy, it's crashing. There's no way to look at this. Yes, we're going to see pop-ups. There are seasonal adjustments. Certain things happen at different parts of the season. But when you step back and you look at the overall picture, we're in a downward trend in 99.99% of the economic information we've been looking at. And it's not improving at all. It's just getting worse and worse. And with the credit market, the credit cycle at its weakest point, well, this is not going to help the situation. With global corporate defaults on record to surpass 2009, and this is when we had the Great Recession, this tells us this problem that we have right now is a lot worse. This is why everyone needs to prepare and get ready for what is coming. And we're seeing many events occur throughout the world. It's getting worse, it's accelerating, and everyone needs to be ready, because when this system comes down, credit's going to freeze up, supplies to stores are going to stop. It's going to be very difficult to get the food, the water, the equipment that you need. You will not be able to get your currency out of the bank. You'll be able to get a little bit, but once inflation hits at that point in time, it's going to be worth absolutely nothing. And this is why everyone needs to have cash on hand and gold and silver. You need to have food, medical supplies, a weapon to protect your family. Because we're starting to see things really accelerate. If you go to Costco, continually go to Costco. If you go into the supermarket, go to Sam's Club, doesn't really matter. If you're doing it online at lifereliance.com, continue to purchase your supplies. Do not stop. Because as we can see, we don't know the exact date. We don't know exactly when it's going to happen. But we can tell from all these indicators that we're getting very, very close. And as we get closer and closer, you will see more indicators pop out showing that, yeah, we are almost there. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.